Everyone thinks because you're a zombie, you don't know good coffee. Well, they're wrong. We have very active lifestyles. It's not all wandering the countryside aimlessly or scaring passing motorists. And we all love a good cup of joe. And there's only one brew that gets my seal of approval. Deadly Grounds coffee is my guilty pleasure. Bold, robust, delicious. It's coffee that can wake the dead. With over a dozen different roasts and flavors, Deadly Grounds can satisfy the most finicky of coffee addicts. The aroma is so intoxicating. It brings all of my neighbors out of the woodwork. Deadly Grounds coffee. Coffee to die for and zombie approved. It's good to get a little deadly. Use the front door! Oh, they're so disgusting.
Persons under 18 will not be admitted.
Hey, happy Wednesday, everybody. You're watching Still Toking with. My name is Leo. I'm the monkey behind the keyboard here. We have a most incredible show for you, as always. And without further ado, Benjamin, how's it going, bud?
Most incredible show for you.
Yes.
I missed that last week when you weren't here.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. Is Mom doing okay?
She's doing okay.
That's all that matters.
Yeah.
So, no, we actually have an excellent show tonight. All our shows are excellent, but our guest is excellent tonight.
Wow. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Jar Jar.
Hey, Heidi ho. Happy Wednesday, everybody on Still Toking. I'm
Wait a
here
minute.
as the
You're not
fake
Jeff. I was going to say, you're not Jeff. Where the hell is he? Oh, that's right. Jeff's gone for 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
2 weeks. His wife dragged him to Alaska.
Holy shit.
Yeah. I tried to pay her to see if she'd leave him, but
Is he going to find a baby Sasquatch this time?
I think he's looking for one.
Okay.
I think he's looking for one. But I'm going to let Jar Jar introduce our guest just because I like fucking with him. Look at his face.
Man. Always do this to me. All right. Well, our guest tonight has acted. He's a screenwriter first and foremost, and has done, well, the greatest of all movies, Dumb and Dumber, and Dumb and Dumberer, and Dumb and Dumb 2, co-written with the Farrelly brothers. It's Bennett Yellin. Oh my God.
It's me. It's only me. My God. It's me. Yeah. By the way, as far as
I'm sorry. You know, next week I'm actually going to be prepared to introduce somebody, and they're not going to ask me to do it, but like
that was the most articulate
yeah.
introduction I've ever received in the history of my podcasting career.
Well, that goes right into my first question. What role does improv play in your writing process?
Absolutely. Not only what's less than zero. But I am so not. I love that. Although I have some like acting credits, and my acting credits include me peeing on the side of an apartment building. Like no, I'm not an actor. I'm a writer.
They're better than my acting credits.
I'm an uncomfortable. Well. That I'll agree with. I mean, and you're introducing credits, so but no, it's nice to be here, you guys. But you have like 45 minutes of introduction, which was very entertaining. I like the zombie. In fact, I'm drinking some Dead Grounds right now. So, woo, that's got a kick to it. But yeah, it's nice to be here, all of you. Thank you for having me. Obviously, you got to the end of. The thin end of guests, and you're like, like I saw your previous guest, and I'm like, I feel like I'm the guy, I'm the celebrity in the credits. Like they go through all the credits, and then Bennett Yellin is the last
special
credit.
Thanks.
I kind of feel like that, but I'm happy to be here.
Everybody's like, who's Bennett Yellin?
I know.
See, I kind of already knew who he was.
I did too.
Oh, it's easy for you to say because I know. And again, I'm going to say it.
We're nerds.
Man, I saw your audition tape for The Little Mermaid, and I'm going to be honest. I think they made the right choice, even if it didn't do well.
Right. I do too. I just want to see how long I can hold my breath underwater tonight. That's all.
It's easier when you're dead.
That is true.
Right. You can go forever.
We could go like this for the whole show. I'm fine with that.
It's going to be off the rails, I'm guessing.
Yeah, it already is.
Leo ate a brownie.
Throw this out, right?
Show them, Jar Jar. Show them your carefully prepared notes.
It's all
two
written on front
sides.
Yeah, like
I have to say,
just go down one by one.
Jar Jar is the most prepared person ever. He's insane.
I kind of
awesome.
stalk you once I find out that like my next interview.
Yeah,
I've been sleeping under your bed. That noise you heard last night. That was just me. Don't worry. Peanut butter and jelly. I like strawberry jelly next time. Prefer.
Don't worry. I've had worse under my bed in the course of my life. Trust me. I hope you got a question that's like where I'm like, holy shit, I had no idea that someone knew that or was going to ever ask that. I hope you're full of those because
I have one. I don't know if it'll make you go, holy shit, but how was UMass? That's actually out near where you went to college out where I live.
Oh, where do you live?
I live right next door to Amherst. I'm in Westfield.
Oh, yeah. That's great. Yeah. I loved it because I was raised. What's your question, George?
Oh, well, God damn it, Bennett.
How was UMass? What did I do?
Was it as much of a party school back then as it is now? Like,
yeah. Well,
I
think it was always thought of as a party school, right? But when I was going there and I was going for graduate school, and you're in grad school. And
Oh.
first of all, if you drink in grad school, you're an adult. So it's not a party. It's a faculty get together, you know.
So how much did you make off of Packy runs?
This is funny because I was raised Orthodox Jewish, and I grew up here in Los Angeles. And I didn't go. When I went to undergraduate, I went to UCLA, and I was living at home. So I didn't leave the house. I didn't leave the nest until I went to grad school, until I went to UMass. And I had not, at the time that I went to UMass, I hadn't gotten high. I hadn't gotten drunk. None of those things. I was living at home, and I was a sheltered Orthodox Jew. In one weekend, and I think it was the second weekend, it could have been the first. In one night, I got stoned and got drunk for the first time, and learned how to play poker all on the same night. And so that's what grad school is all about.
Did you quit it all on the same night too? Where you're just like F that?
Oh, I quit it. That was the beginning of a whole slew of degrees I got in higher education. Yeah, no, it was great. In fact, I remember. I remember when I got. I don't know what was first was the pot, and then the getting drunk. But I remember thinking, like, everything got quiet. My head was so loud, and there were so many. There were like, my head was just a lot of thoughts all the time, and it got really nice and quiet. I said, "Oh, this is what This is why William Faulkner was a drunk." And like I suddenly understood in that moment why some of the great literary figures were famous alcoholics. I said, yeah, this is it, because you got a whole new perspective, and now Cheech and Chong is funny too. You know,
never understood why that van was on fire.
Yeah. But I loved UMass. I loved Massachusetts. It was beautiful. Western. It was gorgeous. You know,
and that's where you wrote Dust to Dust, right?
That's where I wrote. That's where I met Peter Farrelly the first day of class, the first class. And we instantly became friends. This is how we became friends. We're in class. Again, I've never been away from home, so I'm sort of very, like socially awkward. I don't think I've talked to anybody yet. And we were supposed to bring the first page of a short story that we had written to the class. And the teacher was going to go around. We were going to read each page. And then he said, and then we're going to figure out what we can tell about the story from just the first page. And this guy his name was George Cuomo, and he was heavy set. He was rotund. That's the first time rotund has been used in 2023, I think. I'll send them a nickel, the rotund residuals. And so we read, I didn't know anyone in class. Pete's sitting across from me. We read this first page, and George Cuomo said, I like this first page, but, and I have one very big but. And Pete and I looked at each other and were like, we just burst out laughing. And right after class, we met in the hallway and we said, he did have a big butt, didn't he? And I'm Pete, I'm Bennett. We met instantly that day. And that's where we met. And so we got to know each other very quickly. Even he was writing at the time on yellow pads, his novel Outside Providence, which ended up being published, and then it ended up being made into a movie that was directed by Michael Correnti, another director. But he would read me. He'd come over and he'd read me the chapters as he's writing them for Outside Providence. So yeah, there's more to this story, but it could go of how we got started.
Yeah. I actually know
5 on your list, so
I know the story, but I really like to lead you into it to tell these guys.
Who's leading who, pal?
But Ben, if you'd like to talk, or Leo, I don't want to take up the whole show.
Interject with your astonishing list of.
I told you, I'm just.
All right.
Underwater here.
Let's
actually
be a little boring first.
Well, before you do that, I just want to continue because he did mention Dust to Dust.
Yes.
Somebody did hire you to work on that. Is it true it was Eddie Murphy?
Yeah. I mean, what happened was
something like that.
So Pete and I decided that we had a similar sense of humor. I guess we're going to get to it this way. And we said, let's write a movie. Neither of us had anything to do with the business. I'm from Los Angeles. My parents, my father didn't have, his business was nothing to do with film or television. And Pete's father in Cumberland, Rhode Island was he was a doctor. But we said, let's do it. Because we have a funny, we're funny. We know we're both twisted. So we wrote this silly comedy. And at the time, we're talking about 1985, 80. Bill Murray was huge. John Candy was huge. So we thought of them when we were writing it, that they were both the stars of it. And Dust to Dust, they get two idiots, very much like Dumb and Dumberer, like Harry and Lloyd, who get a job at a funeral home that advertises like special holiday layaway sale, and and the funeral homes, the mob owns it, and they're smuggling drugs, so they get involved in that plot. And then when we were done with it and we were finishing our programs, and Pete was on a date in New York, and the girl said, "You'll never guess who moved in next door to me in Alpine, New Jersey, and it's next door to my parents in Alpine, New Jersey. Eddie Murphy." Now, Eddie Murphy was the #1 box office star at this time. We're talking 86. He just done Beverly Hills Cop, right? Coming off of that.
Had been out.
So Pete said, "Do you ever see him?" And she was like, "I saw him going to get his mail." So I waved to him. And so Pete gave her Dust to Dust. A week later, she called and said, he was coming out and getting in the car. I ran out and gave it to him. Needless to say, this couldn't happen today. We're talking decades ago. Meanwhile, I had come home for the Christmas holidays, and my sister Freda, yes, my sister Freda is who we named Freda Felcher after, if you want to know. She would go Israeli dancing, and she knew David Zucker of the Zucker brothers, and Abrams Zucker. And they had released, Airplane was huge, big hit, and they had just finished Top Secret. It hadn't come out yet. And I said, "Freda, do you think that you could give our script to David Zucker?" And she said, "Sure, I'll give it to him." And she gave it to him. And then months passed. As we say in the movies, dissolve to 6 months later. Both of us are quitting we're about to graduate. And there's an article in the Los Angeles Times, and it was all about, it's called the Eddie Murphy Script Derby. It was about what all the writers who were trying to write movies for Eddie Murphy, because he's the #1 box office. And the article began, God, I wish I had it right here so I could have read the exact, sorry about that. But it said, Eddie Murphy was looking out his Alpine, New Jersey home when he saw a sight that made his heart sink. It was a neighbor coming across the street with a script. And the neighbor gave him the script, Dust to Dust. They put the name in the article. And what happened was Eddie had read it. He loved it. He flew back to Los Angeles, where he was going to be for a while. And he did. And they were looking for us. They were calling all the agencies and who is Peter Farrelly and Bennett Yellin? Well, we weren't anywhere because we weren't represented anywhere, because we're just two guys finishing our graduate programs in Massachusetts and New York. And so that they put that there, they planted that so that we would read it and call in, which is exactly what we did. We called and said, "Hey," called up to Paramount and said, "We're the guys who wrote Dust to Dust. We've been looking for you. Eddie wants to meet with you and he wants you to write something for him." And meanwhile, my sister Freda, not Freda Felcher, but Freda, said, "Bennett, David Zucker wants to talk to you." And I talked to David, and David said, "We read your script. You guys are funny. We want you to write a script for us." And they had a deal at Disney. And that's how we got started, in a way that couldn't possibly happen today. For, just the first reason is nobody physically hands a script out to anybody anymore. They give you a flash drive or whatever. But you try and get close to Eddie Murphy.
No,
try and throw a flash drive and have it land in his pocket. So we were incredibly lucky, that we had access to those people, and that we pushed it. And that bottom line, we had a piece of material that was decent enough. It was our first screenplay ever that represented our sense of humor and showed it off enough that people saw that there was something to us. And so, and that's how we got started with Pete and I. Yeah. And we wrote together for a few years.
Was it meeting Pete that actually made you become a screenwriter? Like, did you have some other career in mind when you were going off to Amherst? Or
here's what, that's a good question. Here's what I thought. As a kid, I loved movies, loved them. I wanted to make them. I wanted to write them. I really did. I wanted to write them. I had two dreams. I wanted to write movies, and I also wanted to be an Imagineer because I wanted to make rides. You know, and I was a magician too. And they're all kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
Like they're all, here's a show. You're the audience. I'm the creator. There's a curtain. It opens. There's a production, and you don't know what goes on behind the scenes, but I take care of that. You're entertained. You're taken away from your whatever and there are all versions of that. Every one of those. Right. So, and in fact, I've got to do every. I got a chance to do both of those dreams, but that's what I wanted to do. But I really, why I went and got a degree, I was getting an MFA in fiction writing. I thought I would graduate with my MFA. I would get a pipe. I would get a corduroy coat with the leather patches, and I go off to some Midwestern college and teach writing, like creative writing, short story writing. Because that's what I thought I would do, and what I expected I would do after I left UMass. I got sort of sidetracked with the screenwriting career.
Damn it!
I know, damn it, exactly. Yeah.
So you could have been teaching creative writing to younger minds right now.
I could have been corrupting younger minds, and exactly
right.
Yeah,
but instead you're writing screens.
I know.
That people love.
By the way, Jar Jar crossed something out. I heard it squeak.
You heard that? Yeah.
Across the. There was some
Don't have to ask that anymore.
That just didn't seem right suddenly. Like no idea what it was.
Well, I was going to ask him these 6 questions, but he just answered them all in one sentence.
Yeah. Right. Good. Right. That probably covered about 14 questions.
Yeah.
Which was like an inch of your card.
Well, how do you balance the humor and storytelling in your writing, like the two of them, where one doesn't overpower the other and there's still a plot and everything?
That's a big question.
I know. How'd you figure that one out?
I'm trying to steal his job here. I'd love to be a writer, but the getting started part is my hardest thing.
What you need to do, Jar Jar, is you have to buy him a corduroy coat and a pipe and mail it to him, and he might teach you.
I already have the pipe.
It's interesting because I never, neither Peter nor myself or even Bobby, none of us took screenwriting course. We didn't take any classes to learn how to do it. We just watched movies. We liked movies. It's like film was a language that I learned from as a child, just watching it. I would watch it and I'd integrate how, where it cuts and things like that. And nothing. I didn't know about the behind the scenes. I just took it apart in my head. I deconstructed it as a child. And so I spoke it and I thought in terms of scenes and the pacing of a scene. And, there's no question that as we wrote more, we got better as writers because you understand the technical logistics of it too. But the very first project we got hired for, we were hired to do what's called a production pass on a script, and it was a script that they were about to shoot. So it was in production and sets and everything. And it was a movie that ended up, the script was called at the time Adult Education, but when it came out, it was called Hiding Out with John Cryer. And this was this comedy where he's a stockbroker, he witnesses something and he has to hide out because he looks young. He hides out in high school, back in high school. And so they hired us to do a production rewrite. They wanted, like, the writer of it was also the producer, and they gave it to us. And when you do a production rewrite, we didn't know this. No one sat us down and said, here, this is what it means to do a production rewrite. We thought they just wanted a rewrite. So we rewrote it wildly, but a production rewrite, you have to stay within all the parameters that they've set up with the production, like all the sets they have. If it's if it's a scene, you got to stay within the set that they have. You can't go, we turned in a script simply not knowing that was all new scenes and stuff like that. And I remember the producer almost had a heart attack because he was the writer as well. Like, So he had to rewrite our rewrite. Ironically, a lot of the stuff that we did ended up in the movie still. We're not credited at all, which I get, but that was, we didn't know. We learned really fast after that. And so our career was a lot of bumping up against the reality of what happened. What's the reality of writing a screenplay and having it actually in the pipeline of production and things like that. A lot of stuff we wrote didn't get made. Many things. If you'll hear Pete and Bobby talk, back in the 80s, and there was so much money. Every studio, you could go out and open your mouth, and there's pennies from heaven. It was just they spent so much money on rewrites, and they developed so many scripts which didn't get made, but they developed many of them. And so we wrote a lot of the things that didn't get developed, and we'd write those, and every one of those would get us another job because they'd be pretty good. I remember we did this an original of this, but of the Beverly Hillbillies. The Warner Brothers wanted to do a film version of the Beverly Hillbillies, and we wrote a script for it. And it was that was one of the best things we wrote. It was a terrific version of the Beverly Hillbillies with a fantastic opening of how they get rich. A whole new, it was so great. It didn't get made, and then that project ended up at Fox, and it was rewritten and remade. And I remember Penelope Spheris was the director of the movie that eventually got made, and she saw Pete once, and she said, "I have to tell you something. I was directing the Beverly Hillbillies, and someone gave me your script when we were halfway through, and she said I almost wanted to quit. I was so depressed when I read your script because it was so much better, and you solved so much in that first act." I'm like, that's a compliment. I like
right?
it.
Yeah, it is.
Right.
But the answer, we've now spent 35 minutes to get to a non-answer to your question, which is you learn. The more you write, the more you learn, and the more you learn about pacing and things like that. And you intuitively, I think the best writers that I've met are the ones who just intuitively understand the way a scene, the flow of a scene, and where a joke goes and everything like that. And even before we would do we'd write any project, Pete is such a great. Both of those guys are terrific. They're such great guys, and they're really great in a social situation. Unlike me, because I can be like this, a gibbering idiot, but they're so funny all the time. And so Pete, he also is a great listener, and so he'll go to a party and he'll come back and he will sit down and he'll write lines that he heard someone say, like a line that jumps out at him. And he had notebooks. Oh, Ben's like that too. Pete has notebooks of these lines or jokes or things that, and it would make me start to write a line down when I think of something funny and keep track of it. And before we'd start to write something, we'd sit down, we'd go through the notebooks, and we'd say, "Oh yeah, take that out, take that." We'd pull things out. So we had these things to kind of throw in maybe to a project we're working on, and then we look for places to throw them in. Sometimes we would pull the plot around to put that into it. There's no question we would, like we would go against the concept of what's organic and what would work. We just like, let's do. We did a bit of that in Dumb and Dumberer, but it's always intuitive for us. I mean, we never worked from from instruction, like this is how a scene should be set up or everything. And now, of course, I could probably teach it in a way only because I've had 37 years of experience doing it. I could teach it that way, but if that's the answer to one of your questions,
it might have been. I forgot what the question was.
So to tie a little bit into that, thinking about, you mentioned like in the 80s, pennies from heaven, money was everywhere. Talking about how writers' pay scale is now compared to what it was. Back in the day, you would write something, you get residuals, and after it goes into syndication, you'd get, checks, forever. But now, from what I've heard, it's like a pay per job. There's no like residuals or royalties or anything like that. How true is that? And like, what's that?
Even with syndication, when something goes into syndication and stuff?
I don't. Well, that's why I'm asking the question.
Oh, my bad.
You guys want to talk privately about this?
I mean, yeah.
Well, so I want to know, how much of that is true, and if there is that much of a gap now, what are your suggestions for somebody trying to enter the writing field today?
Oh my gosh, those are, wow, Leo, too big. And I'm gonna push it. I'm gonna say unrelated questions. I'm gonna go, but I'm gonna try my best to answer. I still get residuals on, like, this is a WGA residual envelope. I love seeing these in my mailbox, and I always try and guess how much it's going to be for, just for fun. My guess was, like, I don't know why. I just go with the first thing that comes to mind. I said maybe it's $34, 7 cents. I just want to say 7 cents, and it costs 60 cents to mail. But I'm still going to see if the bank will take that.
Can you tell us what it was for?
It was for a Disney TV movie back in like 1995 called The Pooch and the Popper.
Oh,
Popper. When they used to have the Disney, when Michael, what was his name? Michael Eisner would be the host, and he'd announce the Disney movie of the week. That was one of those. But this is the residuals and things like that. Those are all, they're all based on what the studio makes on that particular property. And the complication is one of the reasons why. Other side. Go. It's the opposite on your screen, Bennett. There. God, that was hard. This is like some sort of like intelligence.
It just messes with your brain.
I would have failed. Yeah. That's a big part of what the strike is about now. Is streaming is a whole new way of revenue. That in the last strike, which was 15 years ago, streaming was just starting, and we didn't know what it was going to be like. I kind of compare it a lot to when Napster came out and how musicians were trying to figure out how they could get paid from internet streaming and from internet their content on the internet. And so we didn't make a very good deal, not knowing, and neither did the studios, unless they had the foresight of 15 years later to know that streaming would be the number one distribution of content for entertainment. We didn't get a good deal because we didn't know what it was, and we didn't know how to make the deal. Also, the studios they don't reveal what they're making and how much they're making from they keep a very tight lid on it, so we can't figure out how we should be compensated. So that's one of the things we're striking for. One of the three main things for this strike has to do with reconceiving streaming revenue or streaming residuals and things like that. I mean, at the same time, some of the streamers they're literally eliminating shows that would normally have gotten have made some revenue for the writers. They're just eliminating them and they're taking them off. They're taking them away so that there's no way for a writer to make any money from them anymore. We're being squeezed, in all sorts of ways. Another example is, I know we didn't want to get into the strike, but that probably was.
Oh no, definitely.
That was probably Jar Jar's number.
Yeah, I had to just cross it off. I was going to say, tell us about why the strike is happening in layman's terms. I heard that squeak.
Yeah, but let's say that you're lucky enough to be a writer writing for a television series. Television series used to be 22 episodes a season, and you get a certain amount, right, for that. Well, now it's 10 episodes a season, and you're getting half. You're not getting twice as much to make up for the 10 episodes you used to write. The other 10 episodes. You're getting half as much as you got for each of those 10 episodes you write now. That's the squeeze. That's a lot of how the inequality of what's going on, So that's another example of what we're trying to sit down and readjust.
How close are we to like an actual an agreement?
Well, there's nobody there to agree. They got up and walked away.
Did they?
Yeah, and then we just went on strike. So, and we're ready to come back anytime. The thing is that thank goodness the actors, SAG just had a 97% approval to strike if they don't get what they want by the time their contract is up, and their contract is up I think at the end of this month. So they're ready to go out, and if they go out, if actors go out, I mean that's hugely impactful, and if that'll, we're trying to shut down production by picketing and but it's not as effective as when everyone joins in. Those writers come out, and they're on this. They've been very supportive. SAG has been tremendously supportive. So if they go out, that'll have a huge impact, and I think that's going to cause them to consider coming back to the table for all of us. Also, they have stockpiled material, and they know how far they can go before there's going to be a dent, and then there's going to be a real crevasse of entertainment that they're going to need new material for it.
Yep.
So they kind of know when it is for them. So it doesn't. The joke is we're not going anywhere. It's like if they can't possibly expect us to not continue to strike. We're not going to go like, oh, let's end this now. No, we're going to stay out there picketing until they come back, and we start, and we have to talk about AI too, which is very important. And we're really on the frontier of confronting that, because it's the first.
The 90s all over again with the internet happening.
Right. And this tech is so, and here, I'll give you an example of why writers are concerned about AI. And I thought about this yesterday, and I said, Bennett, that's a very good metaphor. And here it is. So when you see a special effect, computer generated, like any kind of special effect, that term, the uncanny valley, and it's you watching it, and it's a special effect. It looks 98% real, but there's some element about it that just doesn't feel right, and your mind knows it, and so you don't accept it because it's not genuine. That's what AI generated writing material is like. It just takes all the example, because it can't think, and it doesn't have it doesn't have a human element to it. It takes everything, and it sort of it should be called instead of AI, it should be called GR, generous reconstitution, because it just changes it and gloms it together in a different way, and it's missing the edges are sharp, and it's not the same thing. The guy Charlie Brooker, this is a brilliant writer who created Black Mirror. He's just
that's a great show.
Yeah, he just generated a Black Mirror script with AI and said it's a piece of shit. He said all they did was just, I could see all my ideas from the other episodes of Black Mirror, but without any subtlety, nuance, smoothing down of it at all. So what I fear is that studios will use AI to generate like a first draft that will be sharp and kind of crappy, but there structurally or whatever. And then now let's bring a writer in for a lot less money than we would have paid them to generate it originally, and bring them in to smooth it out. And I think that's where they want to put us. And that's not where we want to be.
No, definitely not.
So, wow. Another question of yours that took 20 minutes. You have any questions that could be answered in 20 seconds?
I got one.
Minutes. Yeah.
What's the social life like? Are we chilling with Jim Carrey, or are we hanging out with the likes of William Goldman?
Well, if I'd have to be dead if I was hanging with William Goldman, but
yes,
it's not a possibility. I mean, I do have.
I figured I'd go with a writer of some sort.
I will tell you, William Goldman was my favorite write when I was growing up. I loved him.
Oh, no kidding.
I loved him as a novelist, and then as a screenwriter, and he put me in. He created. I loved him. Even like The Princess Bride. I read The Princess Bride, and there's a character named Yellin in it. There's a character named Yellin in it. My last name. So of course I had to write him a fan letter. I was in high school, and my fan letter was, and I just admired the guy so much. I admired his books, Marathon Man, and And he was such a great screenwriter. Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, All the President's Men. Right. He was the highest paid screenwriter. He was like a role model for me. I'm like, that's what I want to do. And I wrote him a gushing fan letter. And at the end of it, I said, you're under no obligation to answer this. But if you don't, I'll kill myself. And, and I got a letter back from him. And it was dated on my birthday, 1975. And I was in high school. And the letter said, "Dear Bennett, I don't normally answer letters. I hate writing them. But after reading your note, I couldn't have you killing yourself either." He said, "Thank you so much for the flattery. I'll try my best not to believe it. William Goldman." And that was it. I'm like, I want to be William Goldman. And that's awesome. Yeah. And by the way, a few years ago, I got a letter like that, strangely enough, written to me by someone young who said, "Dumb and Dumberer made me want to be a screenwriter. And thank you for inspiring me to be a screenwriter." It blew my mind. I was like, it really touched me to receive something like that.
Did you write him back?
I did not write him back.
I didn't think you would.
The guy who wrote me, I did write him back, and we actually connected and we spoke and everything.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, of course I would.
Well, I figured you were like, well, that's one less screenwriter I have to deal with.
Maybe I put some what is it called? Deadly counter that you put in letters. Yeah. You know,
the anthrax.
Anthrax. Put some anthrax in it. There's one less writer, one less competitor.
You realize, Jar Jar, you just shut down the channel. They're
right. That's why I said Anthrax is a band. No, it's a band.
Right.
It's a musical band.
Anthrax is a band, right? I put
out of New York. It's good. It's okay.
Right. It's a thrash or a heavy metal band. But I don't hang with celebrity at all. In fact, I'm always. Let me tell you, it's kind of. I have been with them and I've been out with them, and what happens is it's very weird. Celebrities have this skill that they can shut out the people looking at them, and they can shut out the interest. I mean, they go out and they know that people are looking at them. But they've figured out a way, to not see it or to see past it. But if you don't have that skill, if you're just someone who's hanging out, you're the suckerfish hanging around next to a celebrity. You catch it all, and it's very distracting. It's really uncomfortable, actually. But they're just people. They're just some of them.
Some of them are.
Some of them are animals.
Yeah, they're just people.
Some of them
most of the ones we've met are just. Yeah, well, that's true too.
Yeah, you get the nice people. You get the nice people on your show. Have you ever had a guest? Okay. That you didn't like she came on and you're like, but you had to be polite, like you're doing now, pretty much.
Well, yeah, there's been a couple over the last 4 years. There's been a couple over the last 4 years.
Yeah.
Where I typed to Leo behind the scenes 5 minutes in, is this fucking show over yet?
Yeah. No, everybody.
This guy is an asshole.
Most of the time, people are very nice, and by the way, and Jim Carrey is very nice, and Jeff Daniels is very nice, very nice people.
I find Jim Carrey to be fascinating. His attitude towards life these days.
Yeah, his spiritual search.
Yeah,
right. Because he's gone through a lot of iterations of like he had his whole "I'm not really here. We're not really here," and I'm like, God bless you, Jim. I'm glad we did Dumb and Dumberer 2 before you left, and come back soon. But no, I can see him exploring. The guy has said, you can have everything you want. You can have that check that you put in your father's grave when you buried your father. That could come true for you, and still feel like there's something missing, and he's right. I mean, it's true. It can happen to anybody.
So now that you're now writing with James Johnston, how did that happen?
Well, I've only written in partnerships.
Yeah,
I've written several partnerships, like the Pooch and the Pauper, 7 Cent Pooch and the Pauper was written with another writing partner that I wrote with just after I stopped writing with Pete and
Did you
Bobby.
call them to see if they got 7 cents too?
I texted him, and he texted me back, so I texted him a picture of it.
He was like, "No, I got 9 cents."
Son of a bitch. But I always like working with somebody else because it was William Goldman who actually said there's nothing more lonely than a writer going into a room by yourself, sitting down at the time at a typewriter and closing the door and being by yourself. And I don't like that. So, and I've never written anything that by myself. I always like to write with a partner. It's fun. It's your friend. It's social. You spend, honestly, a lot of time not writing, avoiding writing by just laughing and talking about this and that and the news and people who are pissing you off and then you get to writing. But also I love being part of. This is why I actually I avoided I avoided television for a long time because I just thought that it was going to be very stressful and late hours, and I didn't want that kind of life where you get home at 2 a.m. and then you have to get but when I finally did a show, it turned out to be this very sweet thing where the writer's room was just full of, we were so lucky, good creative people, and the idea of throwing an idea around and having it just tossing from back and forth is so much fun. There's no ego to it, or the less ego the better, because you don't worry about saying something stupid. Everyone will forgive you for a stupid remark because there's no stupid in that room. There's either it works or it doesn't work, and there's no judgment. I've been involved in that kind of scenario multiple times I've worked a number of times with a friend of mine, Brian Levant, who directed the Flintstones and Snow Dogs and Jingle All the Way. And Brian comes from television. He was the showrunner on Happy Days at a certain point, and then the new Leave It to Beaver. He loves a writer's room. So he will get together a bunch of writers. He just loves that whole process of that throwing it around, and I love it too. I think it's so much fun. So James is the last writing partner that I've written with, and we've written together for the longest amount of time. I think we've written together for about 18 years, which is, that's a long time for a partnership, because partners can go their separate ways, not for negative reasons, but because somebody wants to branch out or do that, or there's 1,000 ways that they might separate, but we've stayed together because James is so smart, and he was the head of development for Patrick Stewart at Paramount when Patrick Stewart had a production deal when he was doing Star Trek at Paramount, and I came in to pitch him something with the Mark Stylin, with 7 Cent Mark Stylin. We wanted to pitch him a remake of an old British movie that was that called The Assassination Bureau, that was based on a famous book. Oh, gosh, I wish I could remember who wrote the book. Very famous author, and at the time, my partnership with Mark was ending, and so that's when James and I kind of developed a partnership and started writing together. So and have worked together on a bunch of stuff. A lot of direct-to-DVD things, and although don't forget, we'll come back around to at the end of this. I want to mention we just James and I just sold a spec script hours before the strike. The producer took us out. Huh?
When you do that, not to get too deep into it, but with the strike with the strike going on, they now have to adhere to exactly what's in the script, right?
Well, here's the reality of what can happen. So this producer we knew he was interested in the script, and we had meetings with him about it and everything like that. And the strike was coming, and the Friday before the strike started on May 2nd, I think, he took us out to breakfast, and he said, "Guys, what's the reality? Is this going to happen?" We said, "It looks like it is." So, he said, "Well, then I want to buy your script before the strike starts." So the plus is the man bought our script. We had to do some fast, maneuvering because we couldn't do it. Once the strike started, we couldn't have any involvement, zero. So we sold it. Although we did find out later that if there was a sale in process, it could continue if it went over the beginning of the strike until the sale was completed. If it had been started before. But we got it done before on April 30th. And so how thrilling. We sold a spec script hours before the strike started. And then we can't work on it. We can't do anything. We can't now they can, it's his script. I mean, he owns it. He can do whatever he wants,
Oh, okay.
That's the thing. So they've already had a reading at which we couldn't attend any of that, and we can't attend. We can't do anything until the strike is over. So they could ostensibly, they're not supposed to, but they could rewrite it. They could. They're making it in September or October. It's called Traction, and it's a supernatural thriller. And it's
nice.
It's different. It's not a comedy. It's a supernatural thriller. Very much, it's kind of we wrote it a few years ago, and at the time our management said, "You guys, you can't do this. This is sort of like a hybrid of of one type of movie, and then it turns into another." And we were like, "Yeah, that was our intention." And they said, "Well, we're not doing that." Now hybrids, Barbarian is a recent example of a big hit movie that's called a hybrid horror movie, where it starts out, you think this is happening, and then that's happening. And it's young girl wakes up in the hospital room, and she's in traction. She cannot move, but she's got amnesia. She has no idea who she is or where she is, nothing. And someone or something does not want her there. Some creepy energy. So that's where it starts. And that'll come out next year, I'm sure. But yeah, we can't. And the strike may end by the time they start shooting it, or once they're in production, and maybe they'll bring us back in to be involved creatively. But we can't do anything. So it's the give and the take. I'm very, very grateful that we were able to sell it, and I'm sort of sad that we can't work on it. But I so support the Guild and everything we're striking for that I also wouldn't want to do anything to I want to respect my Guild very much.
With that movie, with that writing, are you a believer of the supernatural?
Yeah, I think I'm a believer of. Yeah, I'm a believer of. I think the spectrum of what's out there and what's in there and whatever is massive, and we're only attuned to like that on that radio dial, and so I don't know. I don't have answers for it, but I think there's absolutely and it's always just so fascinating. I've always been fascinated by that and ghost stories and horror. I love horror too, but the supernatural fascinates me, and also unidentified UA. Now it's called
UAPs.
Is it not UFOs anymore? Right? Leo?
Yep. Yep. And did you totally off topic? But did you hear the news release for today?
Is this that someone in the government like has claimed that we do have? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. I do. I keep in touch. I love Whitley Strieber, and so I keep in touch with all that. His site, which I think is great.
His story is, oh my God, just incredible. His
story is incredible, and it's not a joke, but when he came out with Communion, everyone was like, okay, a sci-fi horror writer writes this thing about alien abduction. It's so obvious that this is fiction. Here it is 30-something years later, and the man is still, this is what he's dedicated his life to, is exploring this. It's pretty obvious that it wasn't fiction. That this was not some trick of his or some bull crap that he was trying to pull up. The man's very committed to exploring that world, and yeah. What else you got, Jar Jar?
Oh, well, wait a minute, Jar Jar.
Oh shit! Okay, Ben,
I actually listened
Ursula up there in the top square. Yes. What about you?
I listened to an interview that you had done not too long ago.
Oh God, I'm sorry.
And they asked you what was the first movie you saw, and I kind of started chuckling because you went on this little rant about how you would go to the drive-in, and in the station wagon, and then all of a sudden I went poof in my head, and I'm like, I used to do the same thing. That station wagon with the panel and the seat in the back.
Yeah,
but it was correct me if I'm wrong, but it was Brothers Grimm.
It was The Wonderful World of the Brothers Grimm.
Wonderful World.
Yeah.
So, I'm surprised you haven't rewritten that, because you said it scared the shit out of you.
Yeah, it traumatized me. And I'll watch and of course I've watched the scene that scared me so much, which was Buddy Hackett fighting and Terry Thomas fighting this what's it called, stop motion animated dragon with skulls in it, whatever. But for I think that movie was 1963, so I was 4 years old, and so but for a 4-year-old, it's terrifying, like there was danger, there was threat, and it didn't matter how funny Buddy Hackett was supposed to be. It's comic now, I think. But boy, did it have an effect on me. Also,
it had the effect on you because it put you into that mind frame that every time you saw a film, you wanted to be a writer.
Yeah,
and that's where I was kind of going with that.
Or it was a magical place, that it was a magical world. You could, at the same time, I think Bonnie and Clyde came out in 1967, and my two older sisters took me to see Bonnie and Clyde. I'm 8 years old, and that movie was. It's hard to imagine how what effect it had. The end of that movie, it's just so shockingly violent. There had not been. I think the Wild Bunch had come out before it, maybe it was 60. Wild Bunch was 68, but I was horrified. The end of that movie, it traumatized me. I'm still traumatized by it. I mean, film has this extraordinary effect, and not just to traumatize, but to take you away, to make you laugh, to make you feel better, to move you, to scare you, to all the things that you sit in this darkened room with a bunch of other people. It's a weird communal experience, and you're all being manipulated to feel these. I mean, where else do you do that? I guess maybe you said, like that's what religion is for some people. You go to a church, you go to a synagogue. And so, movies were they really were like my synagogue.
Nice.
Because, and had that spiritual effect on me of making me feel like there was something bigger out there and something I wanted to be a part of. I'm very lucky. I don't ever take for granted the fact that I have had this amazing career, this kind of, not everybody gets one, and certainly not everybody has contributed to a movie like Dumb and Dumberer that's entered the zeitgeist and become this cult thing that seems to be regarded with a lot of affection. That's exactly what I wanted to do as a kid. I wanted to put on a show for you that took you away. It's so nice I got to do it. It really blows my mind.
It's great because me and my friends still do little lines from the movie every now and again, and it's just like I haven't watched the movie in probably like 15 to 20 years.
Yeah,
but still, like lines will come up and just be like, oh.
And there have been innumerable movies that have won the Academy Award, and that you think of as that's a great movie. That's one of my favorite movies. But is it in this weird culty kind of zeitgeist where every election either side will use? So you're telling me there's a chance, they'll pull lines from it, and I'm like, it's just, and it was not a big hit it was a big hit, but it was not. When it came out, it could have been just another movie that came out that Jim Carrey was in, that was funny, that made some money, and then we move along. But for some reason, it just got pulled into this weird, lofted place, which you can't make happen. You can't. I mean, that's not something you can create. It has to happen to it retroactively.
It's either magic or it's not.
Yep.
Right, and then I'm very. For goodness sakes, the idea that I contributed to something that makes people laugh or gives them a warm feeling of when they saw it it's intergenerational at this point. People show it to their kids, and then the kids laugh, and that blows my mind. I'm so proud of being part of that. And this podcast too is right up there.
I don't know about all that.
Dumb and Dumberer, Still Toking.
One thing we never did through the entire show so far, and the show's getting towards the end, is Leo. Where can they find out about our amazing guest?
I was waiting for you to ask.
I didn't want to interrupt Bennett. I mean, he was just going on.
Oh, just amazing stories.
I was loving it. So, but where can they find out more about the amazing guest that we have here?
Well, if you check the show notes up above or down below, depending on where you're watching or listening to us. But if you're also listening on Dead Dork Radio, just head on over to stilltokenwith.com and you can learn more about our guests right there too.
That was a very.
Are you landing the fucking Millennium
We've got exits front and back, front and back.
So yes, everything about Bennett is in there, including. Is it Really Important Guy Inc.?
Really Important Guy Inc. is I had to incorporate for like tax reasons, and I thought, what sounds like a pompous. Like, what's a pompous name for a company I come up with? That sounds like it's a really important company. Yeah, and I went, wait a minute, Really Important Guy Inc. That's it. And what I love is that I have it on my checks and things like that. I have it on my credit card, and I love. I always know when I go out to eat and I pay with my credit card, I always know if the waiter or waitress has looked carefully. Because they'll come back to the table and go, really important guy. They'll hand it back and they'll make a mention of it. They looked at it. But it always gets a laugh, which that's a long middle name, but that's my middle name. Not really. That's where that came from. Now someone's going to rip me off and start a Really Important Inc. to.
My final question. Yeah. I'm sorry. My final question, and it's really kind of, is this true? On IMDb, it says something about you in the future writing about Police Academy. Is any truth to that? Because I'm a huge Police Academy fan, and I love all the sequels. I actually didn't know that it went up to 7, though. So, like, I have a few that I missed.
There's a reason why it tapered out. 2 or 3, if you saw them. The answer is I did work on that. There was Brian Levant, my dear friend Brian Levant was going to direct it, and got together a writer's room of my writing partner and a few other writers, and we wrote a fantastic. It wasn't just so much fun to write this. But the producer, Paul Maslansky, who produced the original and who produced like the good ones at the beginning, he sat in too. He was an older guy. Oh, sorry, Ben. What?
We might even say 4 was okay.
Know your shit. Come on.
5 was not bad.
But Paul Maslansky sat in on it for the whole writing, and he said at the end when we were done, he said, "This is the most fun I've ever had because it was a blast. It was a great group of people." That's the joy of a writer's room, where you're just throwing it around. And we wrote it for Warner Brothers, and then it was a really fun. The script was it was as if you took it off the shelf from the 80s. That's the what we were going for, like watching a sequel that was made in the 80s. Although it had obviously it had a sensibilities of now in the comedy, but it read just like that. And I was so happy about it, and we were all excited about it. And Warner Brothers, just they weren't. They had an I don't want to get into the details of it, but they had an opportunity to do it, and Netflix really, really wanted it and wanted it badly. But they also wanted Warner's to let them show their all the other Police Academy movies, and Warner's balked, so it sort of killed the project. It froze it. And I think Paul Maslansky's son has tried to resurrect it, but I don't know. But that was a sad one that didn't happen, because that would have been Brian would have been the right person to direct it, and it was a really funny script. And Steve Guttenberg was calling every week to find out how it was going. I know, because he was excited to do it too.
It would have been cool if he would have been like the new Commandant.
Right?
Yeah.
It was you would have been happy. I'm telling you, if you love Police Academy, you would have been happy with this. We acknowledged it in all the right ways. I know it's terrible when you hear about these projects that didn't happen. You're like, damn it.
It happens so often. Like
a lot.
Literally, even in the comic book world, we'll hear like one of our favorite stories is getting optioned for a movie, and 20 years later, still nothing has come of it.
Right.
And you're just like, oh man, that would have been so cool.
Development is, this is what for a movie, it's a movie. A film goes through, think of the factory as like a conveyor belt and an assembly line. And a script goes through so much on its way to becoming a movie. And no bad movie that I'm aware of really starts out with a horrible script. It starts out with a good script that gets screwed up in the development process as it moves along that conveyor belt. And then
kind of like the telephone game.
Right, like the telephone game. Like the telephone game where the intention is to be shitty at the end. Yeah, like to deliver the worst message at the end. But no one wants to do that. Everyone wants to make the best movie possible. And so when you see a movie and it's good, it has gone through it has survived the gauntlet of production and development, and it's a miracle. That's what I'm trying to say, is a good movie is a miracle. And so celebrate it, like appreciate it. And I like to make fun of bad movies because they're fun to make fun. Like I have friends. We have a bad movie night, every month. That's what, and you're encouraged to catcall. I'm gonna tell you the best catcall I ever remember. It was for the movie Prophecy. Do you remember this movie was a horror movie made by John Frankenheimer in the 80s, and it was all about like a mutated bear that had been poisoned by the logging companies. They poisoned the river, and so the bear mutates and starts killing everybody. And we're watching the movie, and there's a scene where this Native American chief confronts the bear and is saying, "You can't do this." And the bear just takes a swipe at him and starts attacking him. And one of our audience, this very funny, very smart film critic named Alonzo Duraldi, said, "Please don't squeeze the shaman," which I thought I just thought that was the funniest thing I'd ever. But so it's fun to and I remember seeing a preview of that movie in the theater with Frankenheimer and the executives there and roaring, the audience roaring at the whole movie. But I've just now completely obliterated the point of saying that celebrate a good movie by saying to make fun of bad movies. So I apologize, but at least when you're making fun of a bad movie, you're extracting joy from something that may have gone wrong. But I love Mystery Science Theater.
3,000.
Yeah, I love that stuff. What else?
Ben, it's your turn. Say it.
What's my turn?
Well, that wraps up the.
Oh, it's an outro, as they say in the.
Is it?
Oh yeah.
Are we done?
Leo's got another show coming up shortly, so let's go to. You already had your last question, though.
I know. That's why I said.
He did. He's saying he's handing it over to you.
Seeing how it's been the Jar Jar and Bennett fucking show tonight. I do want to ask you a serious question though. Where you're in the guild in SAG and all that, what do you think about independent? Just out of curiosity, writers.
I love it. I love it. It's get your movie made any way you can. I mean, like absolutely. And I'm certainly not an advocate for only the studio system or whatever. And in fact, independence generally allows for a lot more of that's for independent filmmaking is for independent filmmaker, meaning like a writer director, somebody who really has a vision and wants it and wants to keep that vision theirs. That the fact that that option exists is huge. It's massive and it's really important to keep independent film rolling and going. And that means see it, see them. Be an audience member. Make sure you vote with your money to keep it going. But I'm a huge fan of independent. Some of my favorite movies were like independent films. Not outside the studio system. System, it's like it's like McDonald's. Like that's what you get, and you're going to get it, and and they make it in the same way. It's processed in the same way, and again, like things get through that are more artistic and kind of more like, for instance, I won't say I won't give an example, but I'm a fan of independent cinema and that system. It's so hard to get a movie final. It's not hard to get a movie written. Although it's hard to get a good script because it's hard to find a good writer, but they're out there, and it's not hard to gather together the people to make a good movie.
Right.
It's hard to finance a movie, and in fact,
it is.
You're seeing it more and more now. Before something starts, whether it's streaming, there's 5 or 6 production companies, their logos before the movie starts. Because that's how it had to be glommed together from a whole bunch of different sources, and it had to go international and things like that. And there's so many rules for international financing. They have lists of actors they want that they want in the movie. It's really it's a different game depending where you're getting your money from. But
right.
Yeah.
So cool.
Wow, Leo, you want to ask about rat snakes? How to capture them and gently release them back into the? No one's going to understand this.
Oh,
I don't know. Some of our diehard viewers that have been here since like season 1, season 2, they'd understand the rat snake.
They all know about Leo, the murderer.
The best thing was that you actually had a picture of the dead rat snake to show me, like waiting.
Oh, no, that was only one of many pictures.
Yeah.
Probably the least the grossest.
The least gruesome.
Yeah.
Jar Jar, do you want to,
I do have one thing to.
Well, that's not where I was going, but you can go anyway.
Yeah, you've already hugged enough of the show.
No. I was going to say, do you want to tell them how the snakes were dispatched of?
Yeah, please tell me.
How were they dispatched of? I don't recall.
What?
Axe?
The chopping of the heads?
By double axe. I had one in each hand, and because during the summer they would go so fast they'd crawl up the.
Somebody just wrote. We all know.
Yeah.
Leo.
I'll end it there.
I'm going to write that script.
Rat snake movie.
I'm gonna bounce ideas off of Bennett and see what I can get back.
There you go.
Yeah. Let's take 5 minutes to do that right now.
Just run it through the AI. Then
let
it
AI
up later, Bennett.
Somebody pause him.
Don't worry, I'll pay you later, Bennett. It'll be all right.
He just hiccuped. That's not really Jar Jar. I swear to God. Yeah.
By the way, Power Tool is not a toy by the young adults.
By the young adults. When Dumb and Dumber, the script of Dumb and Dumber was rejected soundly by every place we sent it out to, we said, we should rename it and send it out again. So we did it twice. We sent it around twice more. Once we called it Go West, and then in a fit of desperation, we called it A Power Tool Is Not a Toy, which was a song by the young adults. And again, it was rejected soundly. I guess they had coverage. Once someone figured out, like, wait a minute, we've read this script before, and then they looked at the coverage, and everyone said,
both are really good alternative names, I have to say. Like, Go West makes sense. And
it would have worked, but Dumb and Dumber is in the, once again, it's in the zeitgeist. So there you go. Wow.
Right. So Leo.
Yes, sir.
Why don't you go ahead and ask him your question, and then we'll wrap it.
Sounds good. Well, one thing we like to ask is, since we are on the Dorking and Podcast Network, what do you dork out about? Like, we had one guest that loves, the history of like sunken vessels, and another may collect snakes. What do you dork out about?
Well, there goes the snakes answer. You know what? I think I even said this at the beginning, that the 2 things I wanted to do when I was a kid was I wanted to write movies, and I wanted to be an Imagineer. So I dork out about the behind the scenes of theme parks and attractions and things like that. I'm fascinated by that stuff. And when I was growing up, I knew I couldn't. I knew I didn't have any capacity to be an Imagineer because it was all kind of engineering and things like it was the technical sciences that I was always terrible at. I knew I could write, and I knew I could write a sentence, but I couldn't tell you what angle the track had to be at to make that was way beyond me. So I didn't think about that as a career, and then so I became a screenwriter. And at a certain point, I asked a friend of mine who did work in it's called themed entertainment. He had just come back from Abu Dhabi, where the company he worked for had opened a $4 billion amusement park called Warner Brothers World in Abu Dhabi, and he had designed it. He'd been part of the design. And I said, Taylor, do you get people who come from like film and television into your the themed entertainment? He said, yeah, all the time we do. He says the process of developing an attraction requires a writer. And I was like, oh, you're kidding me. So I went and I spent a year and I explored that. I met everyone in the biz from Imagineers to I got to actually go and have a meeting at Imagineering, which was a dream come true of mine. And in the process of it, met people who did that and also were fans of Dumb and Dumberer. And one company, Super 78, they're like a little boutique company, and they make attractions. They hired me. They were hired to take an attraction at an aquarium in Texas, and it was a 4D movie based on SpongeBob SquarePants. So 4D is like you're watching the 3D, and then it springs a leak. Right, and you'll feel water hitting you. And they had lost the IP for SpongeBob. They were renting it, and so they needed to re-theme the attraction. And so they took Jules Verne's 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea because it was free, it's public domain. And so they brought me in to do a comedy pass on the material, and there was also improv involved because they created this system where. If you've been to Disney World, there's something called Turtle Talk, where you're talking to animated turtle is talking to the kids and everything. They created their own system to do that, which is part of the attraction. And so I did like a comedy pass on the material. I actually had a chance to work on an attraction, and it was so much fun. I had such a great time. And then I thought, oh, I could probably pursue this as a career, but then came 2020 and came March 11th of 2020, and everything came to a halt. And so but I got to do it once, and I had a great time doing it. And for me, that was a dream come true too. So that's what I geek out about. I love that stuff. I love amusement parks. I love roller coasters. I love all that stuff, and have been pursuing it for years. But yeah, it's a
awesome.
big.
That's really cool.
That's my geek
and
out.
You've got to live it out. That's even
I can't. You can imagine how I feel that I got to do the two things that I dreamt about doing. I just I have to make sure that the roof is. I'm sort of inviting it, but no. And then I always wanted to be on a podcast called Still Toking, but that was another dream of mine. And now hold on, I'm going to cross that off my list.
The bucket list. All right. I got to hang.
On that note,
yeah.
Leo.
Yes.
It's your turn.
You going to take us out?
I'm very disappointed.
What is that thing crawling around by your act? Leo, it's a snake!
I was going to say, Ben, I'm very disappointed.
Oh.
Well,
that was thank you. That was the best time where you could have said, "Just go, man."
Oh yeah, just go, man. Right. I always actually while I've been sitting here, I did. So there you go. I couldn't get up, and I didn't want to interrupt the show. So
now you know why I'm under the sea.
Yeah.
So since this has been Jar Jar golden. Since it's been the Jar Jar show, the Jar Jar and Bennett show, why don't we have Jar Jar take us out?
Where am I taking us? All right. Since there's a strike and stuff, I can only read what was already written. And that says, and that's a wrap, folks. Thanks for tuning into Splash. Oh, no, hold on. Still Toking with the podcast that always leaves you with a smile on your face and an appreciation for the world around us, I guess. But no, I'm Jar Jar.
What the hell is that?
I have no idea, Ben. You guys can put me under the button here. But you can find me here next week on Still Toking with, and we'll be having Eddie Deason on. If I said that correct.
Great.
And then if you're bored in about a half hour, I'll be on a show called The Midweek Geeks. And if you're not doing anything Tuesday night of next week at 8 o'clock, I'll be on this show called Splash Pages. And if you're not doing anything right now, my back really is sore and I could really use a back rub. But yeah, those are all the places you can find me.
Wow.
Oh, another disappointment.
Yeah.
Well, so normally I would then say, Bennett, where do you like people interacting with you on social media?
I don't like them interacting with me at all, but in fact, the less, the better. No, I mean, I'm barely on social media, but I am on Facebook. I'm on Instagram, so you could. Don't send me your spec script, please. I'm not allowed to read anything.
Yeah, I heard.
Can't read anything. It's fantastic. Keep it up. I've just given you everything you needed to get from me. This is the best script I've ever read. Don't give up. But actually, my advice is don't give up, because if you give up, everyone else rises a little higher. But if you stick with it, just stick with it, because everyone's going to drop off, and you're going to be left at the top. Trust me. Stick with your dream. Go with your dream, pal. It's the worst therapy advice I think I've ever heard in my life.
Benjamin.
What about you, Leo?
What do you got to promote?
You know what? Just
Ditto screwed up tonight.
Jeez. Just whatever Jar Jar said, ditto. We're gonna be doing another show at 9, but just Google me. You'll find a bunch of stuff. Could be true, could be not. I'm not gonna say which is which. Does that satisfy what you need, Benjamin?
Sure.
And Ben, can you take us out with your a little bit of under the sea for us?
Right,
please?
right. One of the things Leo forgot to mention is that he runs the Dorkening Podcast Network. He's got over 40 plus shows on the network. A lot of great people doing amazing things.
Oh yeah, that.
Yeah, that. But I want to thank Bennett for coming out and hanging out with us tonight, and just shooting the shit, I guess. I mean, I didn't get any fucking questions in edgewise, thanks to Jar Jar.
No, you did.
I'm sorry. You told me the co-writer of Dumb and Dumberer is going to be on, and you thought, oh, please.
Yeah.
I still haven't even finished. Like, when are you on next, Bennett?
When am I on next? You mean what am I on next?
No, when are you on here next?
Oh yeah, I don't know.
Or if you want, I'll take your email and we can just hang out.
I think we shot an enormous amount of shit. I don't know how much shit there's left to shoot, but
one of these days, one of these people are going to fall into my DMs, and I'm going to have their phone number, and I'm going to be like, I've made it.
You have my phone number.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Dream bigger, Jar Jar.
Dream bigger.
Yeah.
But no, seriously, thank you to Jar Jar for being my co-host tonight while my co-host is on his Alaskan trip. I hope he's having a good time up there, freezing his ass off. But to all our veterans and first responders, we want to thank you for doing what you do so people like us can do what we do. Stay safe. We'll see you next week. We're out of here.